What's up, guys? Back again for another episode of the Doug Las Vegas Bets UFC betting show. This week I'm super excited. I think this is one of the best cards of the year, one of the best cards of the last few years, to be honest. A couple of my all-time favorites on this card, and Jiří, Aaron Pico, Esteban, Ribovics. Tons of great matchups, and the best part is all these betting lines are close, with Aaron Pico being the biggest favorite at just minus 300, and a ton of fights within the minus 200 range. Without further ado, let's get into these fights. First, we got Jiří Procházka versus Carlos Ulberg in this absolutely incredible main event. We will start with the former champion, the absolute madman, the true samurai, Jiří Procházka. He is a pressure fighter, an awkward, violent powerhouse of violence. He will take so much damage, but just keep pressuring, and he breaks people. He broke Khalil Rountree. He broke Alexander Rakic. He broke Glover Teixeira just by staying in their face. He broke Dominick Reyes with that nasty spinning elbow. Volkan Oezdemir. This guy just, all of his wins come inside the distance. You can't put it better than that. He makes people exhausted and just not fight like themselves. Khalil Rountree just turned into a punching bag because he was too exhausted from the pressure. Alexander Rakic crumbled after looking incredible through a round and a half. Jiří just stayed so consistent in his face, ate his best shots, and kept coming forward to break him. There is the problem in that he takes everybody's best shots. You could say he is such an honorable fighter that he will give everyone a chance by making sure they land their best shot on him early. But he has a fantastic ability to take damage against anyone except Alex Pereira. You saw Rakic land clean on him. You saw Khalil Rountree land clean on him. How many times? I mean, even Jamal Hill landed clean on him a good number. So, you know, when you're taking he's going to get hit with these calf kicks. You know he's going to be getting pieced up. You know he's probably not going to win a decision. But it doesn't matter. You can't look at his technique and try and evaluate a technique for technique. You just have to evaluate, can the guy survive against Jiří for that long? Or does he have the power to put him out like Poatan did? Now, when we're looking at Carlos Ulberg, very clean, sharp kickboxer. Lands 50% of his strikes, got a couple knockdowns, knocked Dominick Reyes out in his last fight, has a win over former champion Blachowicz that was pretty close. Yeah, he's got good leg kicks, very sharp 1-2. He's not the highest volume guy, especially when he's got someone where you can tell he feels the threat in front of him. Even against Dominick Reyes, it was a pretty slow-paced fight, but he just was waiting for Reyes to enter. He didn't force the action. It's not a bad thing that he waited for Reyes to come in, but he's not a guy who's going to force the action. He's been on a fantastic long streak since his debut loss to Kennedy and Jiu-Jitsu, where he just blew his load early. I'm not really thinking too much into that one. I really just think that was a debut lesson and experience thing that he clearly learned from. You don't win your next 8 fights without learning from a mistake like that. So as far as this matchup goes, I don't think it's a bold prediction to say Ulberg is going to look like the cleaner fighter. He's going to land his calf kicks. Joe Rogan's going to be talking about how it's compromised within 2.5 minutes. But man, do I think Ulberg can finish him within like 2 rounds? I don't know. Jiří's really durable. He took a lot of shots from Khalil. He took a lot of shots from Jamal Hill. Alex Pereira's really been the only guy we've seen in the UFC that can put him out. So do I think Ulberg has power? Yes. Do I think he has Alex Pereira power? No. And when you give Jiří 5 rounds to hunt a guy like that, I'm taking Jiří. I think Jiří is going to find a finish at some point in this fight. I think he can take all the damage from Ulberg early. And as much as I don't think Ulberg's a quitter or anything based on his debut, I don't think he's a gasser. I just don't think he has 5 rounds against Jiří Procházka. I don't think a lot of people do. I think we've seen a lot of the best fighters in the division crumble. Glover Teixeira, a bad stylistic matchup early in Jiří Procházka's UFC run, crumbled under that pressure late with just a few seconds to go because Jiří keeps hunting. So if this reaches round 3, I really think it becomes Jiří's fight to lose at that point. He's just going to have pressured so much, and I think it's going to wear on Ulberg. We haven't really seen him handle a pressure fighter like that when he's in these clean kickboxing matches with guys like Reyes or Jan. It doesn't tell me a lot about how he's going to handle Jiří. And, you know, you have to have been through the fire a few times, I think, to deal with Jiří. So outside of an early Ulberg KO, I really think this is Jiří's fight to lose. I'm rooting for him big time, so I'm trying not to let my bias play too much of a factor here. But I do think he gets the belt back. Give me Jiří. As far as betting angle, Jiří inside the distance plus money, I think, you know, it's not much different than the money line, but how often does he really win a decision? So if you want Jiří plus money, you can just do that. If you want a bit juicier, I think a 3-4-5 play. I think Ulberg's, like I said, going to be the cleaner guy early, but it's just a matter of when does Jiří get to him, you know, and then in round 5, it's just going to become a game of survival, I feel, for Ulberg if it gets there. So I think there could be some value in those around, I think it's plus 2,000 right now on Bet Online at plus, for round 5, plus 1,500, round 4, plus 1,000 for round 3, something around there. I think you put all those together, you might end up with a pretty good payday. Next, the new co-main event after a cancellation to Van versus Tyra, which sucks. I mean, it's not really a cancellation. We'll be talking about it again, a month from now at 328. So we'll still see that fight, although it really would have been, it would have put this card over the top. This card would have been one of my most anticipated ever with that fight. I still love it. But anyways, on to the fight. Azamat Murzakanov taking on Paulo Costa, light heavyweight. This is a very weird matchup. I think everyone knows that from the booking. Murzakanov has been on a really long undefeated run at light heavyweight. He's 16-0 at 37 with a bunch of knockouts coming off that early knockout against Alexander Rakic. He's a good powerhouse striker. Obviously, he has big power. He can create the big moments. I'm still not overly sold at his potential when it comes to the top of the division. I don't know that he has the volume to hang with these top guys that are going to be durable enough to deal with his big power or fast enough to avoid it. And then on the other side, you've got Paulo Costa, who's moving up from middleweight. Very inconsistent at middleweight, to say the least. Had that fight of the year war that he won with Yoel Romero. Drank a bottle of wine, apparently, before the fight with Israel Adesanya. Still haven't seen enough people bringing that up again this week. I love that story. How do you drink an entire bottle of wine the night before your first UFC title fight? Anyways, then there was the whole Marvin Vettori weight fiasco where Paulo Costa simply decided the fight was going to be at 205, and it was at 205. Anyways, as far got kind of lost in the nonsense that is Paulo Costa. As a fighter, when he's on, he's on. You saw that last fight against Roman Kopylov. The body kicks are sharp. He's got these long punches for a guy with such a short reach. He really extends well, I find. So he does well to manage range even with his limited reach. And especially in a matchup here where he has a reach advantage and he's taller in a matchup where he's moving up in weight. I don't think him moving up in weight is actually going to impact too much, except it might help his gas tank a little bit. His gas tank actually looked pretty good sometimes at 185. Other times not so much. He's a decent grappler too. He doesn't wrestle offensively much, but his defensive wrestling is very strong. Yoel Romero couldn't get him down. We know how credentialed a wrestler Yoel Romero is. Although I do expect this one to be a striking match. As far as my pick goes, I've kind of flip-flopped on this one to start. I think there's some weird value in the betting lines. I'm leaning Costa heavily right now, although I'm going to leave an asterisk beside that. And I'm going to talk about why here. I don't get how Murzakanov can be that big a favorite and then under 1.5 can be plus 210 or whatever it is. I think if this fight extends into the later portions, I don't think Murzakanov can keep up the volume against a guy like Costa. I think Costa is going to be slamming the body kicks in that open stance. I think Costa has better boxing. He's more experienced at the top level. He's going to have that added bonus of not having cut weight. That being said, Murzakanov hits hard. But do you see Murzakanov getting a late stoppage? Him by decision is the most likely prop outcome right now. And I got to be honest, over 3 rounds, I think that comes down to maybe a coin flip round 2. I think Murzakanov could win round 1. Paulo could even win all 3 rounds. I think he's the much faster, more athletic guy. So I'm thinking about a play on Paulo Costa money line or under 1.5. I'm going to take a while longer to think about this fight. Make sure to keep an eye on my socials in case I pop out a confident take here, but I think this is just such a weird matchup that you kind of have to take one of these plus money angles and see how it plays out. There's a bunch of different ways this could play out. But right now I'm going to lean Paulo Costa to get a decision just with output, volume, and athleticism. Here we got another weird booking as we go to heavyweight as Curtis Blaydes, veteran former title challenger, takes on Josh Hokit, who's 2 fights deep into his UFC career and has absorbed a total of 3 strikes. We'll start with Blaydes, of course. The like I said, former title challenger. He's 35 years old. Strong wrestling base. Wrestled hard for 5 rounds against Alexander Volkov. Decent boxing. Saw him use that to get a main event knockout win over Chris Dawkins. Coming off a win, we'll call it, against Rizvan Kuniev. I thought he lost the fight. It was a split decision. He was also injured. I think he was a hamstring tear or something, and he's been out since then. So there's some concerns on the Blaydes side. I mean, when you look at the body of work, fantastic wrestler, great top game, great ground and pound, and I think underrated boxing, although his durability is a bit of an issue. Obviously, he doesn't want to stand and bang with guys like Pavlovich and Derek Lewis like he did. But his boxing's decent. He can hurt guys for sure. Although, here's my thing. At 35, coming off this hamstring tear and looking back at his last few performances, we have to acknowledge what Curtis Blaydes we're getting. When you look back, if this was the Curtis Blaydes coming off a win over Alistair Overeem where he elbowed his face through the canvas, hell yeah, give me minus 120 against this young, unproven guy all day. That's not the case. We just saw Blaydes, in my opinion, lose a decision to a debutant. I think Rizvan Kuniev's good, but a prime Blaydes doesn't lose to that guy. Prime Blaydes is near the top of the division competing for titles. Like I said, he's having these fights with Tom Aspinall. He's getting number 1 contender fights against Sergey Pavlovich. He's coming 1 fight away with the Derek Lewis fight. This was a guy who's always been on the cusp, and I just don't feel like he's always on the cusp anymore. The question becomes, is Josh Hokit ready for what Curtis Blaydes still is? Because I don't think he's completely washed. I think he still beats a lot of guys in the division. Now we go to Hokit. What are we getting from this 8-0 guy who, like I said, has been hit 3 times in the UFC? I think all 3 times was Max Jimenez, the jiu-jitsu guy he knocked out in a minute. I don't think Denzel Freeman landed a strike on him. That was put him through the washing machine and made him quit in the most literal sense that I've ever seen. The guy went down on a knee after no strike and didn't get up. So, I think he puts a good pace on guys. He's really good at gassing guys out. After his Contender Series fight, I was kind of critical. I thought he just kind of held on to Uriel until he gassed out and then pounded out what was already a done fighter. But then seeing him do it again to Freeman and then seeing him go with this ballistic pace early from Jimenez, I believe he has a gas tank. He appears to be a good athlete. I don't know how good his striking is in an actual striking match just because it's been so limited and he mixes in so much wrestling. He's a credentialed wrestler too. It's just I can't get there with him at these short odds against a guy like Blaydes. If he wins, it's really impressive, and he should get propelled to the top of the division. It wouldn't be shocking, because I'm not eager to back Blaydes either. So here's the thing. Yeah, like I said, I have a hard time putting my thoughts together on this one, because it's a weird fight. I'm leaning towards Blaydes as a pure pick, just because I kind of get the Whitaker Aliskerov feeling here, where you've got this guy who's been at the top of the division for so long, and then you've got this red hot prospect who's finished a few guys. Obviously, we'd seen Aliskerov lose before. There were some concerns about him going into that one, more so than Hokit. But Hokit hasn't been tested. We know Hokit's a good hammer. The question here that I have, can Blaydes make him a nail, and how is he going to do as a nail? Or how is he when he's not just running the guy over? Can he handle competitive fights? So I just have too many questions about this one to back him at this short price. But again, not confident enough to back Blaydes either at 35, coming off an injury, seeing how far he is out of prime. Hokit's getting better, he's getting worse. Typically, I look to back the guy who's getting better in that situation. I just can't get behind it at this size of a jump in competition. So my pick will be Blaydes, I'll say by decision. Back to the light heavyweights. Dominick Reyes takes on Johnny Walker in the battle of the man who beat John Jones versus the battle of the man to beat John Jones. If you get what I'm saying there, because Johnny Walker was always the man who, well, not always, before the Corey Anderson fight, was the man everybody who said was going to beat John Jones, or John Jones should look out for this guy. Anyways, on to the fight. Dominick Reyes, 36, big left-hand power puncher. Unfortunately, the chin is completely gone. We saw Ulberg land one clean strike to his jaw. It sat him down completely, ended the fight. We saw him suffer 3 straight brutal knockouts with the Jan Blachowicz loss, the Yuri Procházka spinning elbow, and then the Ryan Spann knockout where he was knocked out by a jab. Had the nice comeback run where we cashed on him at plus 190 against Dustin Jacoby. Finished, the ghost of Anthony Smith, and then the Krylov fight, which was the most impressive win in my opinion, although Krylov looked a career worst there, also in my opinion. He's a good volume striker, pretty good defense. He looked really cautious his last fight against Ulberg, but still entered that one time, just couldn't help himself, entered with nothing in front of it and got clipped. On the other side, Johnny Walker, huge, athletic, power puncher, actually pretty decent grappling. We saw him try to shoot right off the bat in hilarious fashion his last fight against Ming Yang Zhang. Also known for having a bad chin. Although he's always had a bad chin, I don't think it's getting any worse. If anything, it's maybe getting better. I mean, Zhang landed a big right hand and an elbow there that, I saw those in... I don't remember being shocked at the moment, probably because that card was at like 6 in the morning. But I look back and I was like, wow, Johnny Walker actually ate those shots. Not bad. Anyways, when I evaluate this one, the odds are close. Dominick Reyes is a slight favorite, and I kind of lean Walker outright here. So I played Walker by KO at plus 250 for 2 units already. I kind of think that's an outrageous price. Walker's younger. He's huge. Reach advantage, height advantage over Reyes. Reyes been brutally KO'd 4 times. That's clearly the path against him, and Walker is clearly a dangerous guy. I think the under 1.5 is shaded here, so you're looking at a KO on either side. And, when you evaluate these guys, you think, oh, the battle of no chins. And I kind of alluded to it in my analysis of both guys. But what I really look at here is Dominick Reyes' chin is gone. Well, Johnny Walker always had a bad chin. And there is a difference there. Dominick Reyes could take a punch at one point, and then he's taken all this damage, and now it's like the jab from Ryan Spann put him out. The one shot from Carlos Ulberg put him out the first big time he landed. Whereas with Johnny Walker, we've seen him getting knocked out since he was on the regional scene. I don't think it's getting any worse. I don't think the fact that Magomed Ankalaev and Volkan Oezdemir knocked him out tells us, oh, his chin's completely gone. I think that's just a matter of when Johnny Walker fights power punchers, there's a good chance he's going to get knocked out. And there still is here. Seeing either of these guys get knocked out wouldn't shock me. And that's exactly why I think plus 250 is a good price on Walker by knockout. If you're telling me something happens 1 in 4 times, and I think it's damn near a coin flip, I'll take it. So yeah, I took Johnny Walker by knockout plus 250 here. I'm not going to overthink this one. I think Reyes' chin is completely gone, and if you're going to give me that price on a big athletic hard hitter like Walker to knock him out, even with the risk behind it, I'll take that all day. Next, a battle of the veteran 145ers as Cub Swanson is back at 42 years old to take on the 37-year-old Nate the Train Landwehr. We'll start with Cub. Obviously, he's been around forever. The slick striker with good movement. Tried a little run at bantamweight, came back up, and he's coming off that knockout a bit over a year ago against Billy Quarantillo in the 3rd round. Also had that good back and forth fight with Andre Fili, which I thought he won. And then had the win over Hakeem Dawodu, where I thought he lost, funny enough. But yeah, we know what Cub is. He's got that slick striking. He'll keep a high pace. I'm a little concerned about his durability at this stage in his career. You know, he's susceptible to the leg kicks. Jonathan Martinez destroyed him with those. He's 42. What more can you say? I don't think I need to justify being concerned about his durability. Although he's been working well with his new camp. We're seeing guys like Lorraine Douglas and Danny Silva come out of, I think it's called Bloodline. So he's doing fantastic work as a coach outside the octagon. He's done some media stuff too. So, you know, Cub's been a busy guy outside of the octagon. He said he's coming back for this one time. Also a little concerning. On the other side, Nate Landwehr is just kind of a psychopath. He's lost 3 of his last 4. Just a guy who sets a ridiculous pace and has pretty good durability, although we've seen him knocked out a lot of times for a guy who I say has pretty good durability, so maybe I should walk that back a little bit. But, you know, we'll see him take a shot and keep going. Maybe I should say good recoverability. That's a better term for it, because we saw him recover and come back to take the crazy fight with David Onama, where he kind of made a name for himself. And then against Dan Ige, he almost got knocked out in the 1st round. He still lost the fight, but was able to recover and put together 2 more rounds. He has decent power and pretty slick grappling. He's got a nice anaconda choke on his record against Ludovic Klein, which aged really well. He's got a rear naked choke against Austin Lingo, and he was the first man to knock out Jamal Emmers. So there's some good finishing things. He was looking pretty good in his fight with Charrier last time, until Charrier just went ballistic on him to start round 3 and put him out. Overall in this one, I kind of lean Landwehr. Him being 5 years younger at 37 is kind of crazy. I think he can still set a higher pace. I think he has the grappling upside here. And, you know, I don't think Nate Landwehr knows what retirement is. He's 37, but I think the guy's willing to take 10 more knockout losses before he considers it. Well, Cub Swanson knows this is the end for him. This is the last ride. And, you know, people don't always ride off into the sunset in the UFC. Let's just say there's more Nico Prices than Michael Chiesas in the world, if you want to look at the recent example. So I'm going to lean Landwehr here. I think Swanson could look good in the striking early and hurt him, but he's just going to keep that pace on him, wear him down, take the last few rounds, if not get the late finish. I'll say he gets a 3rd round sub for fun. So I lean Nate Landwehr here. I think he's the side on the money line. I might be making a play on him there. This one's awesome. Get ready for the Aaron Pico experience. This is one of my favorite experiences in all of MMA, is watching Aaron Pico fight, because this guy just goes balls to the wall. And he takes on another guy I really like in Patricio Pitbull. People who've been following me know we cashed big on him by decision against Dan Ige last time out, so we'll forever hold a spot in my heart for that. We cashed on him against AJ McKee in the rematch as well. So we'll start with him. Really technically sound fighter. Solid boxing that you saw. That was such a clean straight right that sat down Dan Ige. He's defensively clean. He mixes in the body work well. And he's got a really good ground game. He doesn't use it too much, but we saw him almost snag an armbar early against Yair Rodriguez, and then he got some control time too against Dan Ige. He just did a bit more pre-UFC. And that kind of alludes to the next point. The guy's 38. Most of his career and his entire prime happened outside the UFC. The Dan Ige win was good, but I don't think it's really a sign that he's on the way up. I think Dan Ige, his durability is waning. I mean, obviously he got hit with the huge spinning back kick from Costa, but we'd never seen Dan Ige even drop before that fight. I think, Dan Ige has taken a lot of damage. He's been in a lot of tough fights with a lot of tough guys, and you're going to get caught like that sometimes. 38-year-old featherweights don't hang around too long, and we've seen Pitbull finished brutally a few times. Got knocked out early in Ryzen. AJ McKee took him out. I don't really trust the durability, and at 38, that's a big concern, especially against Aaron Pico, the ultimate aggressive fighter. I gush over this guy's skills because watching him box, he has the most satisfying boxing, I think, in MMA. The way he'll rip long combos and end off to the body with the nastiest liver shot. I don't know what he has against people's livers, but he looks like he's trying to rip them out of their body with those punches. And then obviously also a credentialed wrestler, so it's not going to get stuck on bottom. And he used that wrestling, but he's not going to wet blanket you. He goes for hard ground and pound shots when he gets on top. So you might be wondering, with all this gushing over his skills, why is this guy not double champ already? And it's because he fights like an idiot. And that's my favorite part about him, is Aaron Pico will not take his foot off the gas no matter what. He will stay in your face at all costs, and he does not have a great chin. We saw, again, it's another shot kind of like I was talking about Dan Ige, Costa. Like, yeah, you got hit with that huge spinning elbow, but that's not the first time we've seen him get caught with something huge. He's there to get caught with something huge, and he'll go out when you catch him with it. Like the Adam Boric's flying knee, got caught with a guillotine in his debut after getting hurt. And then, most recently, the Lerone Murphy spinning elbow knockout. One thing I can promise here is violence and action. I think this is going to be an absolutely awesome fight. And when you look at the price tag on a guy like Pico, I think a lot of people would be eager to go against Pico at such a steep price coming off such a big knockout. But I'm kind of eager to take him here. I think he runs through Pitbull in this spot, to be honest. I mean, there's always the obvious wild card of Aaron Pico getting knocked out. Never going to be the most shocking result, so I don't really blame you if you want to take the Pitbull knockout plus 650 shot. It could be a juicy cash, but personally, I think Aaron Pico is going to put the pressure on him early, and Pitbull's just not going to be able to take it at this point in his career. We saw AJ McKee get on him early and hurt him. I think we could see something similar here. Pico's got that power to crack him early. He's got the wrestling to slam him, just hit some ground and pound and really make him think about whether he wants to be in there. So I'm going to take Aaron Pico by first round knockout in this one. I really think he goes out there, puts on a show, and shows why the UFC has put so much backing into him. I'm really excited to see this one, though. This is a possible fight of the night. Next, we got sort of a mirror matchup at welterweight. It's Kevin Holland and Randy Brown square off, two 6'3" welterweights with plenty of experience and slick styles. We'll start with Kevin Holland. He's kind of a fan favorite, kind of a most hated at this point. I think people are very divided on Kevin Holland. And it's because, he had that 1 year where he went up at middleweight, won 5 straight, was super active. And then he just kind of failed to address the clear holes in his game, moved down at welterweight. Still just didn't really seem like he was overly interested. The fight against JDM, it felt like he was in a sparring match, content to lose a decision. Against Mike Malata's last fight, he got hit with the nut shot and just looked like he was trying to play it up so that people would know, oh, guys, I didn't lose because I'm bad. I lost because of the nut shot. It wasn't because he was boxing my head off or anything. So, you might be able to figure out from that. I'm not the biggest Kevin Holland guy. I think, you can often, when you're betting on these fights, say like, oh, well, the fighter cares a lot more than you do with your money, but honestly, I think anyone who bet $5 on Kevin Holland might care about him getting the win more than he does at this point. That's just how I feel based on what we've seen from him. You know, that's not to take away from his talent. The guy's dangerous. He hits hard, especially for a welterweight. He drops a lot of these guys. He's got nice jiu-jitsu too. He put that anaconda in on Vicente Luque and put him away. And obviously Luque in his current form isn't that impressive, but Joel Alvarez couldn't put him away. So, you know, there's always a danger factor with Holland, and he has a fantastic chin. That's why I've liked betting against him by decision, because, you know, he doesn't like getting finished. He doesn't want to go hard enough to take the fight back against Mike Maw, but he wasn't going to go away from a punch just because he was in pain. You know, he'll hang in there. Randy Brown on the other side, slick, long striker coming off the main event knockout loss to Gabriel Bonfim, where he got hit with the knee up the middle. He's always been a good fighter. You know, he had that big knockout where he became the first to knock out Nicholas Dalby, had that split decision he arguably won against Brian Battle before that. Good fights with Zaleski dos Santos, the knockout over Muslim Salikov. I mean, the guy's a good, slick striker. You know, the problem's kind of been his durability, but when you look at the guys finishing him, Bonfim's dangerous, JDM's really dangerous. You go back, Nico Price in his prime, you know, he had those weird knockouts. That wasn't the only one he had. And then Vicente Luque, one of the best finishers, of all time in his prime. So when I look at this fight, I think there's two ways you can go with it from a betting perspective. I don't think you can really go wrong taking solid plus money on Holland inside the distance or Brown by decision. I think it goes either one of those ways. I think Brown's going to be the minute winner, but at any moment Holland could catch him, hit him with a club and sub, anything like that. I don't see Holland winning a decision. I think Brown's slicker defensively. I think he's more active offensively. Personally, I lean the Brown by decision side, but right now at Bet Online, that's plus 150 and Holland inside the distance plus 190. So you're getting a bit more juicy odds on the Holland side. I'm going to wait and see what other books open up Randy Brown by decision at, just because I'm a bit more interested in that side. So I think that's going to be the play on this fight if I make one, although I don't really hate the Holland inside the distance or inside the distance only, if that's at a decent price. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. My pick will be Randy Brown by decision. I'm going to wait and see if I can get somewhere around plus 200 on that, though. We got one of my boys fighting here. Esteban Ribovics is back. Although I should pump the brakes on the excitement because he's taking on Mateusz Gamrot, and I'm pumping the brakes because I think this is a horrible stylistic matchup for him. We'll get into why, because Mateusz Gamrot, to start with him, 35, he's a UFC vet who's been at the top of the division for a while, and he is a phenomenal wrestler. This guy wrestled for 5 rounds with Arman Sarukian, arguably out-wrestling him. We've seen him just win fights by dragging guys, rinse, repeat. He controlled Ludovic Klein for 3 rounds on the ground, and he's not a bad striker either. He gets rocked a lot, so I think people are concerned about his durability, but he's never been knocked out for a reason. He's in great shape and very good recoverability, keeps a good high pace, and he's got decent pop in his hands. We've seen him get a few knockouts, got that knockout over, Scott Holtzman. But yeah, he's going to want to get this fight to the ground. And against Ribovics, he's really going to want to get this fight to the ground, because there's a reason I love Ribovics, and I've been banging the drum for him in his last, I don't know how many fights. I remember laying a big bet on him against Kamuela Kirk. I really liked what I saw on his regional tape, and that came through well. And then obviously, bet him again against Terrence McKinney for that finish. That was awesome. And the peak was the Daniel Zellhuber fight where, fight of the year back and forth war almost took him out in round 3. That being said, all these positives, and then his last 2 fights, should have got the decision against Nasrat, still wasn't the best performance, and then beating up on Ellis Brenner. All these positives, there is still a massive concern, and that's his takedown defense. You go back to his debut against Loic Rajabov, and he was getting taken down over and over. He got taken down more than 10 times in that fight, 11 times. That's bad against a guy like Gamrot. You hear a guy got taken down 11 times and he's fighting Mateusz Gamrot, you're in trouble. The one thing I do think could keep him in this fight is I think Mateusz Gamrot struggles to wrestle actively a bit more against guys who come forward against him. Saw that against Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, and then Klein was more on the back foot counter striking, and he was able to get him down, of course. So I do think Ribovics pressuring him and coming forward is going to make it a lot harder for him to get the takedowns. But right now I have a hard time not seeing Gamrot get the takedowns. I mean, this is a guy who's not going to be afraid to wrestle. And then Ribovics' get-up game, it looked pretty good against Radjabov. He got up enough times to get taken down 11 times. Getting up against Radjabov and Gamrot are different, though, and it's kind of limited. You heard DC talked about it in the commentary, and you've seen it all through his regional fights. He loves to Kimura sweep. He loves to use it to get up and try and submit guys. I think Gamrot's going to see that, of course, and be prepared for that. Gamrot's a very high-level grappler. I don't think you're going to get up on him with just a Kimura sweep. I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think there has to be a real evolution to Ribovics' get-up game, or he has to do enough damage landing early knockdowns, keeping the pressure on, and taking a decision here. Or obviously he could get the knockout. Gamrot's 35 now, and he's been knocked down a lot, so it wouldn't shock me. Overall, I think the price is a little thin. I might end up on Gamrot here. It really hurts me to bet against Ribovics because, you know, he's one of these guys I gush over. Him, Jiří, and Pico. I saw all three of those guys on this card, and I lost my mind. I was so excited. But then the more I think about this matchup, my heart's with Ribovics, but my head is all the way with Gamrot. I just can't ignore 11 takedowns against a guy as high a level of a wrestler as Gamrot. Not just his first time facing a wrestler since he fought Radjabov. Well, Kamuela Kirk, who held his back for the entire first round, but was also a 145er who gassed out. So, asterisks on that one. But this is the first time we've seen him face a grappler. You know, Elves Brenner's not really a grappler. He comes from shootbox, but he's not going to wrestle fuck guys. And Nasrat's a pure boxer. Daniel Zellhuber's a pure boxer. Terrence McKinney could have wrestled him, but the fight lasted 30 seconds. And yeah, Kamuela Kirk did get control on him. So my pick here is going to be Gamrot by decision. If the price keeps thinning out, it dropped already from Gamrot minus 175, where I was leaning to him, to minus 160. If it comes under minus 150, I might have to get involved on the Gamrot side. But my heart still with Esteban Ribovics. I will never turn my back on my guy, except for maybe this one time. Here, a matchup of top-ranked strawweights as Tatiana Suarez, former title challenger, takes on the Mexican-Canadian Loopy Godinez. This is a good fight. Tatiana Suarez, obviously a super high-level wrestler, dominated girls on the ground for most of her UFC career, won every fight she's had except for the one Wei Li Zhang fight, excuse me. Problem is, 35, having had a laundry list of injuries, is super concerning, and coming off a performance where she struggled to wrestle against a 38-year-old Amanda Lemos, who has notoriously been pretty easy to wrestle. It's super concerning, especially against a girl with the grappling credentials of Godinez, who throws a lot more strikes. I give Godinez a clear boxing advantage. So I think, you know, Suarez's path here is kind of cage push and hope Godinez keeps engaging. If Godinez is determined to create space and box here, I think this is Godinez's fight to lose. Although it would be a very Lupita Godinez thing to just get held against the cage and try and grapple and reverse Tatiana Suarez. So I'm not overly confident in this pick, but I am going to take Lupita Godinez here. I think 3 years younger, but probably a lot younger in fight years, if you know what I mean. Tatiana Suarez has had all those injuries that add a couple years of age. Loopy Godinez, you know, she's 9-5 in the UFC, but she started in the UFC pretty early in her career. So it's still, you know, did a lot of learning on the job. When you look at the 9-5 UFC record, there's a lot of fights that I think she wins again if she fights now. And if she comes out and fights to her ability for once, then I think Lupita Godinez takes a decision here. And here we have the matchup between the two oldest 34-year-olds on the planet as Kelvin Gastelum takes on Vicente Luque at middleweight for some reason. So we'll start with Gastelum, the high-pace, granite chin boxer. competed with a lot of the best at middleweight, had a nice run to an interim title fight with Israel Adesanya back in his prime. Although that was 7 years ago. That's how far we've come from Kelvin Gastelum's prime, and it has not been pretty since then. He has lost most of the fights except for in huge drops down in competition and fights where he missed weight by however much or made Daniel Rodriguez go up to middleweight, I should say. And then he's coming off this decision win over Dustin Stoltzfus. Hasn't finished anyone since Michael Bisping. Does have, this is a pretty good high-paced boxing, though, and he's always got that granite chin. Cashed on him against Chris Curtis not too long ago because he put that pace on him early. So there's some things to still like against Kelvin Gastelum. He's super difficult to finish. Like I said, you can't mention Kelvin Gastelum without mentioning his granite chin, one of the best chins in the sport. The guy's 8 absolute bombs and never been knocked out, not never been finished because Sean Brady put him in that Kimura. But it did get grappled by Sean Brady, although Sean Brady is a tremendous grappler. I think he does that to a lot of guys down at 170, and I imagine that entire camp was about Kelvin Gastelum getting to 170 because for some reason that seems impossible for him. So, onto the Luque side. I love Vicente Luque, so this one's a little painful to break down at this stage in his career. This guy's in his prime, one of the best finishers in welterweight history. Even that glimpse of it against Themba Gorimbo was so beautiful. The knockout over Bilal, the battle with Tyron Woodley where he got that anaconda choke early. Mentioned earlier, the knockout over Randy Brown. This guy was so violent, and his chin was so good. But the last few fights since the Jeff Neal fight have been really tough to watch, and it's almost getting concerning at this point and disturbing to watch. Going back and watching the corner in the Alvarez fight between rounds 2 and 3, man, that was just like, wow, Luque is not the same guy that he was. He didn't want to fight anymore, and I just don't imagine there was ever a scenario where Prime Luque would have wanted out of a fight. So this one's really sad for me. I just think Luque's so far over the hill. I don't think there's a fighter, or maybe there's a handful of fighters left on the roster that I'm picking him against. And with the durability of Gastelum and the decent volume, he's not going to be one of them. I think Gastelum just puts a little bit of a pace on him, does enough damage, and, Luque might go into survival mode a little bit, maybe lands a couple big shots, but Gastelum is tough to submit with those anacondas and stuff because he's well built. I'll call it well built, the irony in that. But so I'm going to take Kelvin Gastelum by decision here. I'm not sure if he's going to be in the parlay of the week or anything because laying over minus 200 on Kelvin Gastelum feels wrong. But also, Vicente Luque is just so far past it that, is minus 200 wrong? I don't think so. So I'm pretty comfortably taking Kelvin Gastelum here. Although, please, a glimpse of Prime Luque would make my night before the good fights even started. Late addition here, or late replacement here, Chris Padilla steps in for Nazim Sadikov. That one would have been crazy. I love Sadikov too. This card could have had even more of my favorites. But Markel Mederos takes on the always tough and exciting Chris Padilla here. 2 undefeated guys in the UFC, 3-0 on the Mederos side, 4-0 on the Padilla side with the promotion. I think this is a really good fight. Padilla's really durable, and he finds those finishes. He's crafty with it. He was patient against Jan Top until he got that opportunity and snatched the rear naked choke. Beat up on Bomb Theme last time out. The decision win over Jai Herbert might honestly be his most impressive win. I think Jai Herbert's a good fighter, but he's tough to outpoint. So I think outpointing him was a pretty good win for a guy who was that early in his career in Padilla. On the other side, Mederos is 29. Pretty slick striker. He's got wins over Choinsky, Austin Hubbard. The guy, he's good, slick boxing, good movement, good and tight defense. Doesn't take many strikes per minute. Good striking accuracy. Not too much of a grappling game to speak of. Saw Austin Hubbard have a bit of success there against him. Overall, as far as this fight goes, it's kind of one of those fights where I lean towards Padilla overall, but from a betting perspective, I think Mederos has the value here, and I'm going to end up playing Mederos by decision. I think it's plus 240 right now on betonline.ag. I'm going to wait and see if there's better numbers that open later on, but I'll take that plus 240 if it's the best I can get, just because I think this is going to be a close fight for the minutes. I think Padilla has all the finishing upside. He has some finish losses on the regional scene, but he's looked really durable in the UFC. I think he's not the same guy that was getting knocked out by Justin Gonzalez or submitted by those guys. I don't think that happens anymore, and Mederos doesn't have any finishes anyways. So I do think Mederos by decision has some value here, just because this is a fight that's favored to go the distance. He's a slick striker. I think he could win all the minutes here. So give me MarQuel Mederos by decision. Although, Taco Padilla does have the finishing upside. So take from that what you will. And the last fight I'm going to talk about today, Francisco Prado versus Chuck Buffalo Charles Radke. Start with Prado, the 23-year-old prospect, although he has 5 fights in the UFC now, which is kind of surprising. And him being 1-4 is also surprising. Probably because it doesn't feel like he lost his last fight against Veretennikov. I felt like he won that one, although it was close. So anyways, he's a shorter, stockier guy. He's 5'10", 69-inch reach. Fought at lightweight for a while. Got that knockout over a Zaitar. Showed incredible durability in fights like the Zellhuber fight. Just took so much damage and never flinched, never hesitated to get back in the pocket. So I'm really impressed with his durability. I think he's got solid power. I think he's got solid grappling. He showed against Veretennikov when he mixed in the grappling, although Veretennikov not the best grappler in his own right. We saw Vanderford dominate him. So, he's a decent wrestler. Good power, good durability. On the other side, Chuck Buffalo, solid offensive striking, not such good defensive striking. Good hammer, not a good nail. We saw him go through Gilbert Urbina with that nice left hook and just run through him, knock him out. But then when Mike Malott started landing on him, it got difficult and he got knocked out. Also solid wrestling. Also wrestled a questionable opponent in his last fight. He fought Daniel Frunza, was able to grapple and finish him late. Overall, I think this is another really close fight where I'm going to wait and see what the Radke by decision price is, or the Prado inside the distance only. I think Radke's not going to finish Prado. I really believe in Prado's chin. It seems like he has good submission defense. I don't think Radke has that good a submission game anyways. So I don't think Radke's going to become the first guy to finish him. I think he can take all his best shots. He's still just 23. But I do think Prado has the finishing upside, kind of similar to my thoughts on the Mederos fight, my last fight, where I think one guy has the finishing upside, but one guy has all the decision upside, and I'm going to end up picking the guy with the decision upside, even though last time it was the dog in Mederos, and this time it's the favorite in Radke. I think he's just got a bit more of that experience. I think he's a bit cleaner in the striking. I don't think either guy is really going to have too much grappling success. And I don't know that Prado has the power to knock him out. He didn't knock out everybody at 55. He wasn't knocking out Jamie Malarkey. So how confident can I be that he knocks out Radke, even though Radke doesn't necessarily have the best chin? So at the end of the day, my pick is going to be Charles Radke, and I'm going to hope for some good decision odds there. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Doug Las Vegas Bets UFC betting show. I hope you guys are as excited for this card as I am. As always, make sure to check out my social media so you don't miss my official bets. The only one I have down right now is Johnny Walker by knockout at plus 250. Although I am looking to get there on plays like Yuri, Landwehr, Mederos by decision, Radke by decision. So stay tuned. That's at Doug Las Vegas Bets on both Twitter and Instagram. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what to do better, what you want to see from me. Anything like that. Let me know your picks too. Drop some of your bets down in the comments. I want to hear more from you guys. Anyways, that will be all from me. Really hope you guys enjoy these fights, and I will see you next week.